In today's climate, race and how we behave is at an all-time high. Do you feel you have to put an act on in one way at work and a different way around your friends? Do you use Tina instead of Tinashe? Use a fake name on your resume so you don't get judged?
Our guest has been featured on The Today Show and is a Ron Mullis Social Innovation Fellow. He's an advocate for better opportunities for formerly incarcerated citizens. Please welcome Steve Flo Pacheco.
Yes.
What's going on, y'all? Thanks for having me, man. It's
So
a pleasure
glad
to be here.
See you.
Thank you. Likewise, man. Y'all doing amazing work up here. It's a black-led platform with black hosts. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's beautiful. You don't get to do this every day.
This is very true.
Yeah.
We're definitely blessed.
Yeah. Likewise. Right. What's going on though?
So today we're going to talk about code switching. And with today's climate, with everyone just doing however they want to do, you know, people are starting to are so intense about how we speak, how we look, how we just deal with different situations. But that's, for years, that's been happening, but I feel like it's at an all-time high.
I think social media has a lot to do with that, you know, and before I even go into that, like part of what you're talking about is the policing of the body.
Yeah.
And obviously we know as black folk, like there's a higher, you know, level of policing that we're held to oftentimes. And so you'll see the way people police our bodies is much more intensified when you look at other demographics, you know, and I think everybody in some shape or form has a front stage and then they have a backstage.
Yeah.
But I think where the issue really comes in, where people feel like they're forced to change who they are and they can't be their authentic selves or else they're going to be scrutinized, they're going to be ostracized. And you can see this with like a bunch of different marginalized communities. I won't speak on them because I'd rather keep it on me. But me as a black man, like a lot of people are scared of black men, you know what I mean? And it doesn't matter what other layer, it doesn't even matter what other layer you have. So when you add those other layers, it can get even more tricky for how you navigate the world. And so I think that's something that I'm personally always conscientious around, like, am I intimidating people? Like, especially being 6'2", I'm pretty slender, but you know, with this voice and then just like when you move, like you're a bit sure of yourself as I feel like you should.
Yeah.
Like people get intimidated by that. It's like, your action is there to spite somebody else as opposed to me just acting on my own accord, you know what I mean? And I think like the fear of a black man is something that I feel every day, but I think it's so normalized to me at this point where I don't even stop and think about it until like now I'm sitting in front of y'all.
Right.
Yeah. So when you think about, I guess, code switching, and what sort of environments do people feel forced to code switch? I mean, you said, I think you were talking about trying to find an opportunity or maybe going to like a job interview or maybe like going up to someone and asking them for their number or maybe you're at work already and you're trying to do something. How do you feel people can better, I guess, manage those situations so that they don't have to code switch? Or do you have an opinion of it?
Well, I think, I'll be honest, like I code switch a lot. I'm doing it less and less now just because I feel like I'm finding like a comfort zone in who I am, like in all places.
I think, I agree with you.
It's gradual. No, it's gradual.
I think that as you become more comfortable with yourself,
you
realize,
and I'm 29 just for context, so it took time to build to get to this point. It took me to travel a little bit, seeing different people, like basically, I think one of the insecurities for me was, you know, a lot of us focus on ourselves so much thinking like, oh, I can't do that because then people are going to look at it this way. And then you'll end up in an environment where you're like, a bunch of people are doing this. Like, it's not just me. So I think a huge part of it comes from a lack of exposure to environments where you're other. Because I think the main thing that makes people want to code switch is when they feel like an outlier, when they feel like they're the odd thumb, you know, sticking up. And, you know, what does society tell you? Like, oh, if you're the person to the left, you're the weirdo. You know what I mean? You're like the cornball, you know, all of these like derogative terms that people associate with not being a part of the in-group. And I think that when people are like, that's when people have their hardest times, is when they're trying to fit into something that they're not. And a lot of people feel forced to do this a lot of times. And some of the places where people would do that is in a work environment where oftentimes it's predominantly white, right? And so you're trying to gain acclaim, you're trying to rise the ranks, you know, amongst your peers, and you're already at a disadvantage because you don't have the complexion for the connection.
Yeah.
But I think that it also has to do with like your environment, because maybe your parents didn't have that security on who they were, because
Pass down traumas.
Right, pass down traumas, and sometimes, you know, it's from your ancestors going on down, because they you know, they talk about the black man and how, you know, they're not that in the households as much, and women having to do certain things. So when they're teaching their boys, they're just like, well, you know, if your boss says that you're wrong, you know, don't fight them on it.
Don't
do
antagonize, just go with it.
I think that with the code switching, I think if we had more, well, I see that it's becoming more where people are starting to understand their authentic selves. And I think that now it's starting to be less and less of code switching, where people are like, well, you know, what you see is what you get. I'm not going to change the way that I speak because you don't understand. You should understand. You should try to get to where I'm at.
Yeah.
So
when I think of code switching, I think of it more so as like a survival tactic. I mean,
Right.
No, absolutely.
I think that when you are interacting with different people in different environments and whatever background it may be that you come from, that, you know, you kind of arm yourself with different ways to just sort of navigate those situations. And if you can, even from my own personal experience, like I've been on the phone before with people and they'll have no idea that I'm a black person.
Right.
No idea whatsoever. And then they'll meet me in person and they'll be like, oh, you're black. And I'm like, of course I'm black. Yes, I've been black this whole time. Like, I didn't do anything different than I would not have done now.
I can't curse on here, huh?
I mean, you know.
I'm gonna keep it clean. I'm gonna keep it clean for right now. You know what I'm saying? Right. But I think to your point, Michael, like survival tactics is real, and I think another thing that people don't take into consideration when it comes to code switching is like the power dynamics at play.
Right.
Because the other aspect, like we'll speak from the perspective of somebody who wants to impose their will on somebody, and so they want people to act and show up in a space a certain way. You know, power can't be seen, but it can be felt.
Right.
And so to that degree, I think oftentimes, is ironically enough, we end up code switching because of people who are in positions of power who are uncomfortable with themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what it becomes is this projection of insecurities.
So take that for me one more time. You were trying to explain to me.
Yeah, so
I
I'll
didn't
break
quite
it down
understand
in more simpler terms. Like, you take an example, like this is y'all place right here. Y'all are the hosts, you know what I mean? We're great right now, you know what I mean? I don't have any issues with y'all don't have any issues with me. But let's just say y'all wasn't feeling me too much, because I was the person over there with snot hanging out their nose and tape tucked around my glasses, you know what I'm saying? And we all love soccer, right? And I'm actually really good at soccer. But for whatever reason, because I look like that person with the sore thumb over there, you don't want me engaging with y'all in a certain way. And so y'all are insecure about maybe I might be better than y'all at soccer, but I don't look the part, right? So y'all are imposing y'all insecurities on me to basically throw me off my game, right? And then now when I step on the field to play soccer with y'all, I'm not even, like, my head's not even in the game. I'm at a disadvantage to begin with, you know what I mean? And so I think that's just really what it becomes, people projecting their insecurities on other people, you know what I mean? They just happen to be in a position of power at that time. You know?
So yeah, it's like a manipulation tactic to
For sure,
control the situation.
absolutely a manipulation tactic.
Okay, so I want to get you guys' opinion on who I think was a famous code switcher, and you all can tell me what you think. But Barack Obama.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I thought it was just me, because no one would ever talk to me about it. And I was like, no?
I don't think he was a code switcher.
I think he was a code switcher.
I don't think he was a code switcher because Barack Obama, he was not.
What if he's watching right now? Oh my God. Talk to
That'd be
him.
great.
Talk to him.
I voted for you, man. I need the reparations.
I don't think that he was a code switcher because if you really think about his lineage, his dad was from Kenya, his mother was German or something. She was Caucasian.
Like the Midwest, though.
She was Caucasian.
Yeah.
He was raised in Hawaii.
Right.
And then he was educated in Harvard, you know, and all of his surroundings was a certain way. It wasn't like he was raised in the projects and then he had to climb his way out and, you know, he had to fight within, I used to hang out with LaQuisha and now I'm hanging out with Brad. It wasn't a situation like that. He is what his environment is. Because I'll say, for instance, like, I was raised all over. I never lived in the projects. I never was the one who spoke broken English. So I don't know what it means to exactly code switch. Now, I know what it means as in I'll tone down my tone because when we get certain tones,
Inside voice, outside
inside
voice.
voice, outside voice,
I can
and how
agree
I
with you.
deal with
You seem genuinely
like
same
per
energy
conversation
each time.
You know what I'm saying? Instead of saying girl, I will blah 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 blah. But that's all of comfortability with whoever I'm with.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think it's a code switching. I think it's just one of those things that if I was never exposed to that, so that's not really,
I don't
I
know.
don't think
I
that
just
he was a code switcher. I just don't.
I don't know what it was, but I think at some instances, especially like during State of the Union addresses, and when he was talking and speaking, like I kind of be like, this does not seem like the same guy. Like,
Did
it just
you see
isn't-
him with Jay-Z and like 2 Chainz?
Yes.
I feel like
So
that's
that's
Brother
code switching?
Barry. That's Brother Barry, and then we got President Barack Obama.
But that's just a photo.
But
No, they got footage.
Yeah.
Even when he played basketball,
Yeah.
Okay.
he got a different
then-
like bop in his
So
walk.
then, yes, he does. Yeah, he does. No, so then, what's to say about people who just have layers to themselves? So let's say a professional version of you.
Right.
This is who I am with my friends. This is who I am when I am the
When you
president of the
interview.
United States of America. Like
When you interview.
Yeah, or when you're being interviewed. I mean, is that the same thing as code switching? Because I think by definition, I am probably the biggest offender of code switching that there is. Like I have to change and be so many different types of a person just to interact with people to get what I want.
You don't have to.
I don't
You want
have to. Yes, I want to because I want to
He
succeed.
wants particular
But
results.
But who's to say that you wouldn't be successful just being who you are? Because you have to find your tribe.
Oh, read me.
You have to
Read
find your
me.
tribe because anybody who accepts you for who you are, you're successful with them.
This is true, but you can't operate in just your tribe to be successful.
But your tribe is big enough to get you success.
Not everybody's. You got to understand. Some people are like confined to the 4 blocks in their neighborhood.
Thank you.
But that's because they want to.
No, if you can't get on the train,
no.
If you don't know how to speak a common shared language, like something you honed in on earlier was you've traveled, you've been different places, you didn't speak broken English. Something that I think is really underneath that is popular culture is dictated by white America.
Yes.
Like hip hop and pop culture, what is determined, I guess, what people label as pop culture is run by black folk. When you talk about hip hop and things
It
like
is
that,
our culture.
but that's a subculture within the larger culture. We live in a white supremacist culture.
Right.
So if you think about that, I saw a meme the other day that said, "Please stop saying act professional when you mean stop acting what's acceptable to whiteness." You know what I mean? So I think certain people, for you, it's natural for you to be who you are, and you have like this flavor to you that just comes out, and it's probably very much because of your upbringing. Yes. But I would argue that you're very rare because when we talk about,
you can call it rare on top of that.
No, well, I'm not boosting that ego, but we bringing it back to Obama. I feel like certain people are at a disadvantage when they grow up in multiple different contexts because it becomes, especially when you are black, even though he's black and white, it's like when you're seen as black, people already have a host of assumptions and like stereotypes attached to you. They waiting for you to go for the grape Kool-Aid. They waiting for you to pick up the chicken bone and eat it all the way to the gristle. You know what I'm saying? Like people are waiting for you to do these things, and then immediately your blackness is put on like on this test.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a litmus test, or how black are you? You know what I mean? And I think
I fail that test all
even
the
when you
time.
talk, like I can also identify as Afro-Latino. You know what I mean? My mother's side descends from Puerto Rico. My father's from Turks and Caicos. I'm born in America.
Wow.
So it's like when people hear my last name, Pacheco, for a lot of Latino folks, now they looking at me different.
Right.
Because it's like you said, the tribe, right? So that might be a little bit more easier for me than Michael per se for whatever is in his background. But that also comes with like repercussions and consequences because then when I can't speak Spanish, I'm on another test.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I feel like it's all these tests that range between white and black, and like everything else is just in the middle, which I'm not saying that that's how it should be. I don't agree with that, but that's the reality. And I think when you have people who are within the gray area, this is where it becomes difficult because I would argue most of us are. It's just certain people are around people who they can identify with more, and then some people are never around anybody but the people they've been cast aside to.
Yes. Well, this conversation is getting so good, but we have to take a little break. So you stay tuned. We'll be right back with Flo. And of course, Mike will be with us too.
Hey.